Episode 19.
We made it. I actually, I didn't leave you hanging. I thought about it this morning though. There was a moment this morning where I kind of was like, I could press snooze. I could, but I didn't. I want the credit for not doing it.
Credit denied. Only because I have that struggle every day, and then I don't do that. We've got some interesting news today, though. Actually, for a Friday, I think first and foremost, just to get this out of the way, James O'Byrne has a proposed draft change for a soft fork that encompasses 3 bips. So curious about the efficiency kind of trade-offs of integrating 3 bips in one. The bips are BIP 118, 119, and 345. So it's kind of just putting another possibility on the table, which I think always important for technical discussion. Good, more competition for the market. Not really sure what I think about it at this point. I think I want to dig into it a little bit this weekend, and we'll cover it more coming up next week. But this is basically a covenant. These are all covenant tools. So you may remember, OpVault, Jeremy Rubin's project, hilariously kind of took off after he rage quit Bitcoin. But yeah, looking like, I don't know, these things are coming down the pike. And BIP 300 is still being roundly pushed back on by most of the Bitcoin community. I would say I don't see that many proponents, but maybe I'm just not in those circles. What about you, Q? Any thoughts on this? The vaulting covenants, BIP 300.
My position just doesn't change, and it goes back to what I'll pound the drum on when it comes to this stuff: the unintended consequences and the attack vectors that we open ourselves up to, both on the regulatory side and just from bad actors who want to scam people. Like, simple as that.
Got it. Cool. Yeah. So that's a James O'Byrne proposal. We'll get more into this next week. I'm gonna take the weekend and read up on this. But what else is happening? What are you up to this weekend, Q?
Dude, all right. So my girlfriend and I we've lived together now for almost a year. Um, been together for over 2, but in this entire time, both of us have only ever had a full-size bed, not even a queen bed, a full-size bed. So
That's tough.
we've officially moved, and now we have a place all to ourselves. I don't live with my parents anymore. Um, but one of my I want this because I've never had one before in my life is I wanted a king mattress, and our bed frame came last night. So honestly, we're gonna hang this call up. I'm gonna go build my king size mattress or build my king size bed frame, set up my mattress, and sleep in a king size bed for the first time in my entire life. And somehow I expect my girlfriend to keep kicking me in the middle of the night.
California king or regular king?
Regular king.
Regular
One
king.
day, one
feel
day
you,
I
dude.
aspire to have a California king though. I've slept in a California king bed. Those things are huge. I don't have the bedroom to justify that.
I got a king size bed myself the last couple months here. It's a great update. So very excited for you. I got that thing to myself. It's definitely ridiculously unnecessary and too much of a bed, but
No
it's
such
super
thing.
fun. So yeah. Enjoy that. Where did you get it? Did you go
Costco.
mattress shopping, or did you from Costco? I didn't even know Costco sold mattresses.
Dude,
Did you pick up some
Costco
gold bars while you were there?
Costco sells everything. I
Did you
didn't pick
see
up.
this? They're selling
I
gold
saw
bars.
that. I saw that. And then they sold out too. But it's not at every Costco, it's only at select Costco's. Um, Genuinely, I probably would have, if it was at the Costco I was at, I would have at least considered it. Um,
Well, you have to think what's the constituency of that Costco location. I think they probably selected where the gold bars are pretty carefully, state by state. You know,
like, are you saying a more conservative, anti government
Yes.
group. I mean,
Libertarian Republicans. Yeah,
theor-
big blue cities probably don't have gold bars in their Costco.
I live in a red state now.
There it is. Yeah.
Feed me my gold, Costco. But I digress.
Do
I
you
mean,
own any gold?
no. I had to think about that for a second, but no. Uh, I I have some gold jewelry from like Iran and
Yeah.
stuff, but I wouldn't. I don't count that towards my net worth.
All right. Let's well, first of all, okay, you said you're putting together your bed. Do anything else this weekend? Anything else happening?
No, I'm just once that bed gets built. To be honest, I was
Just
thinking about smoking weed during this show because my girlfriend's not at the house today, and I was like, this could be a day I could get away with smoking in the house. But I
But
didn't.
you can celebrate the potential government shutdown. So we've got, Congress less than 3 days to avoid the shutdown. I always think this framing is absolutely ridiculous. Like the government funding is going to run out at 12:01 a.m. on Sunday. It's like government funding never runs out. They'll
Well,
either take it from us or print up some more, come to some sort of agreement or take a nice break. But this happens year after year. I'm excited to see what effect it has on the markets. House Republicans pushing for deep spending cuts, and they're not going to support Senate bill or any short-term legislation that would buy Congress more time to act. So yeah, there's gonna be a vote late tonight on 4 funding bills that will fund defense and national security industries, but those bills are dead on arrival. So we shall
well,
see.
I would say the big things going on here with the shutdown is, first off, this is not like a full blown countrywide shutdown. This is literally a negotiating tactic that's used almost every year now,
Mhm.
by whoever controls the House, almost. Especially when whoever controls the House is a different party than who controls the Senate and the White House. It literally just becomes a negotiating tactic. Some interesting caveats about this one in particular that just, I don't know, rubbed me the wrong way. And I'm in a bad mood about it, so I want you to be in a bad mood about it. Simple as that. Misery loves company. So look, not every government employee isn't going to get paid starting on Monday if they do shut down. High-ranking military officials, they'll get paid. Joe Biden, he'll get paid. Members of the Oval Office will get paid. Pretty much every high-ranking official. Even members of Congress. I'm not a big fan of Matt Gaetz, but Matt Gaetz actually did do something I thought was at least admirable, in that he said, if we do shut down, I do not want to receive any paychecks during the period where the government is shut down. I don't feel like that's appropriate or a right thing to do.
How noble. How noble.
Well, look, he's doing this after having collected, I think it was to the tune of like,
After trading it on leverage all the way down.
no,
Guaranteed.
that absolutely. But the other thing that like I'll always point to about Matt Gaetz, I believe he got about $3.5 million of PPP loans, and then he had all of that forgiven as well. So yeah, sure. If I had $3.5 million that the government just like gave me, I could probably forego getting my salary for a few weeks, months, even 6 months. Especially if my salary is only 6 figures, I could probably go without a salary for a few years. But I'm not done. To this point, lower level members of the military actually don't get paid unless there's a specific clause. In fact, in 2019, when the government shut down, the Coast Guard unfortunately went without pay for that window of time. But again, high ranking military officials do. And the only way for the government to avoid the low ranking military officers from not being paid is to actually just like create this addendum, essentially write out a clause, because they're all lawyers, saying, you know what, we're going to make sure that our service members, the people who sacrifice their lives to protect our freedoms, they're taken care of. Seems reasonable, but that actually hasn't gone through. But you know what the Pentagon pushed through? All funding for Ukraine is still a go, even if the government shuts down.
Of course it is.
All the funding for Ukraine. Now, keep in mind, we don't just fund their
That funding
military.
comes back to us in mysterious ways, though.
No,
It's
it's
giant.
very straightforward. It's very straightforward, actually. I spent all week researching this for Mark Moss, but at its core, it's really just the military-industrial complex. Wash, rinse, and repeat. It's the same thing over and over, but it gets a little more sinister because Zelensky just met with all of these like high-level Wall Street execs. But the one in particular that stood out to me was he met with the president of Blackstone. Now, Blackstone is not BlackRock. It is a type of company exactly like BlackRock, but it is a separate company. Blackstone owns a bunch of farmland, REITs that essentially own farmland to then lease back out to farmers. Also has a huge mining sort of presence, owns one of the largest lithium mines in the world, as well as other precious metal mines. They also have huge manufacturing components. In fact, they even manufacture semiconductors, amongst other things. And then, of course, they are involved within the political system. But how do I know that? Well, yesterday, Mitch McConnell got up in front of cameras and said the number one priority for Americans is ending the war in Ukraine, getting Russia in check. Look, I know Mitch McConnell is like disconnected from the rest of the world. I know, I understand that, but when I looked at the Gallup polls, the number one issue for Americans is the corruption in our own federal government. So that's the number one issue per the Gallup polls. The stopping Russia isn't even in the top 10 per Gallup. So then I asked myself, like, okay, is Raytheon or Lockheed Martin just funding Mitch McConnell? Because they tend to. They do it back a little bit of backwards ways, but sometimes they do give direct large lump sum donations. And you can find a lot of this information. Just Google, go type into DuckDuckGo or Google or whatever you like to use and just type in Mitch McConnell donors. And websites will pop up, because this is all supposed to be public records, of who his largest donors are. And Mitch McConnell's second largest donor is Blackstone. It's a long freaking con to sell off Ukraine piece by piece to not only the military industrial complex, but just Wall Street big money corporations, to then have them go off and profit. But to guarantee that profit, to make sure those investments don't go sour, they have to send tax dollars. Because remember, it's about the corporations, not the citizens of this country. I spent a lot of time.
Unplanned presentation
I
back
spent
to
so much time researching that. Like, I got so many receipts and details.
Damn, I love it. I guess in other news today, what's the old lady's name? Old Congresswoman dies.
I will also own this one, because this is my
Feinstein.
California state senator, or my former state senator, who has literally been a state senator for my entire life. Like, actually, it's not state, technically a national senator for the state of California. My entire life, since I was a kid. Dianne Feinstein.
She's the longest serving. Yeah.
Look, she was 90 years old. This is the woman who, I believe 2 weeks ago, she couldn't even like understand what the vote was about. And you could hear her handlers sort of saying, just say aye, vote aye, please. And then shortly after that, it was announced that her daughter has power of attorney over her own personal matters. So this is a woman who is not cognitively there, or hasn't been for long enough, to make her own decisions about her own life. But California voters not only voted to put her back in, but she was going to run for re-election. And they were going to do it again, because in this country, we tend to favor the incumbent. It's a lot easier for the incumbent to come in and just win elections. That's why you see these 40, 50, 60-year politicians. And I'm not talking about their age. I'm talking about their tenure in DC and politics in general.
Mm. So do you think we should have regular cognitive tests for this geriatric
Dude, you have to
age of
take an extra
politicians?
eye exam at the DMV if you're over 65. Like, here's a
Yeah.
simple thing. Genuinely, if you run a Fortune 500 company, you're going to have certain tests taken of your health and your mental capacity, and there's going to be an insurance policy against your life based on, hey, you know what? He has heart disease. And if the
Mm.
CEO, I'm making this up. I don't want to name names and I don't want to name companies, but just
Well,
imagine
take
no. Just any Fortune 500 company. If the CEO during the vetting process is found to have like a serious heart condition, the company is going to have to take out a larger insurance policy in the event that the CEO abruptly dies. Because if a CEO abruptly dies, publicly traded stocks tend to have a negative,
yeah, of course.
they go
Like
down
Steve
as a
Jobs.
result.
Take Steve Jobs as the example.
Exactly. Steve Jobs dies, Apple goes. I think it went down like maybe 15% in the span of a month, something to that tune. Someone in the comments somewhere on social media, correct me if I'm wrong on that. Fact check me in real time, please. Um, but with that in mind, like, look, you have you have this system in place in the private markets that
Mhm.
face the public markets. And if we're going to sit here and say, I'm not defending the state, I'm not a fan of the state, I'm not a fan of our government. All right. But
Wow. This is
it,
this
what?
is new Q is this is based Q coming out. This is a newer direction in the last few years. I like this.
This has honestly been me in a lot of
Are you gonna
conversations.
vote? Are you gonna vote in this upcoming election?
I might only because I'm in Florida.
What is that meaningful? Are votes supercharged in Florida?
No,
They get
like
counted twice?
I wish.
Just kidding.
No, like what I didn't vote until 2016 because there was a candidate that I like really wanted to vote for, and it was neither Trump nor Hillary. Um, but in the elections before that, like I remember my mom was really trying to urge me to vote. She was like, "Oh, it's so important." I was like, dude, but I'm gonna vote in California. My vote was gonna go for Obama. And I kind of said it in a joke to her. I was like, look, I'm not gonna vote. I don't want to deal with all of that. But if somehow Obama loses, and more specifically, Obama loses California, I will personally go to the White House and knock on the door and kind of say, like, hey man, I'm sorry. I guess I should have voted, but also like how'd you blow California? Like that was a layup, man. Like you really fucked that up. So like I've actually surprisingly never been like a big like the a lot of times I get election ballots and I abstain. I typically don't vote. Um so yeah.
Fun facts. Fun facts. I've
But wait,
also never voted and
I was
probably
going down
never
a
will.
path with something. We're talking about Dianne Feinstein. Oh,
Cognitive tests.
so we have this system where like these businesses have to have these policies in place in the event of something detrimental. Dude, it's no different. If you fine, I'm not saying there should be age limits because there are some 70-year-old men that I know that are sharp as a tack, who can outlift you, who can bench press more than you, who can run more than you can. And then there are some 55-year-old people I know who are on their deathbed. So I don't buy the like catch all age gap, but like let's put a line in the sand and say, okay, the retirement age is 65 in this country. That's the age where you are allowed to access your 401k. If you are elected to Congress, whether it is state or national, if you're elected to Congress after that age, you have to take certain tests that will deem your cognitive ability. And based on that, there is a minimum requirement there that you can or cannot. So that doesn't necessarily work for like the retards in Congress who are 40 to 50 years old, but
Hey, we got breaking news, Q. Sorry to break
we need
your
an audio
rant here.
drop. Breaking news.
Yes, SuZu's been arrested in Singapore.
No shit.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. So, Three Arrows Capital failed hedge fund co-founder SuZu. Was arrested at the airport while attempting to leave Singapore. Love to
Interesting.
see it. I mean, all the villains are going down this year, you know? Many more to come. I think we'll see more from Richard Hart and BitBoy too on a smaller scale. But yeah, SBF, Do Kwon, Mashinsky. It's been a good year.
I mean, this just goes back to like we've seen so many lawsuits to a lot of these just broader crypto influencers that
Hmm.
to introduce that type of opportunity, and I'll call it an opportunity out of respect is not the right word, but understanding that like this is going to exist and there could very well be an opportunity that I'm not thinking of, but by and large what I see today is not an opportunity. But these types of things are going to continue to like they're never going away from the sense of people are going to scammers be scamming. Like scamming is not something invented in the 21st century. Con artists have been around for millennia. And so this idea that, oh, we can just regulate it out of people is such a joke. It's so dumb. Um, Let me ask you a serious question though. Do you think Richard Hart ever sees the inside of a jail cell?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Definitely. Huge fraud, man. Incredible amount of securities fraud going on there. Blatant securities fraud. And he's the kind of retard, like he is the level of I mean, he's not a dumb person, but he's a bad person. And he's a little, he's pretty intelligent and hard to deal with, but I think his ego and his kind of narcissism are so large that he's the kind of person that would just represent himself in a criminal trial and just get absolutely railroaded. So I'm looking forward to it. Um, we'll see what happens, man. He sure has been quiet, Doesn't you don't hear him chirping anymore,
No.
or flexing anymore. And it's hilarious. I mean, you and I have been waiting for this for a long time, but I don't know. I guess kudos to him for staying out of jail this long. He's also facing a lot of identity issues. Like he has a whole bunch of fake IDs and like passports and stuff that have turned up. I think there's a lot more to that story that's going to come out. Are you going to watch this documentary that looks pretty entertaining about him? This was like nationwide in theaters.
Oh, I think I did hear about it, but no, I have no intention of wasting my brain space.
Yeah, I think I think there will be a number of these coming out. I think we'll probably see one about the BitBoy and this era of Bitcoin and crypto generally. So it's going to be pretty entertaining, but yeah, man, crazy. So SuZu's apprehended, government shutdown incoming. Other news, I mean, not surprising at all, but the SEC delayed the Bitcoin ETF decisions for BlackRock, Investico, and Bitwise, to add to the group there about 2 weeks early. So we weren't really expecting to hear from the securities regulator until like October 16th to 19th, maybe like 2-3 weeks from now. The likely reason they're doing this early is to get ahead of the government shutdown, according to James Seyffart, who's kind of a Bloomberg ETF analyst and has basically become a rising star in the crypto community. I interviewed him really early on and is also his boss over there at Bloomberg. And he's since become the number one voice on this Bitcoin ETF ordeal. Very, very good follow on Twitter. So James Seyffart, check him out. What do you think about these ETFs, Q?
I mean,
They're gonna push them until they have
yeah.
to make a decision, huh?
And then I firmly am in the camp the most likely outcome here is they go back and retroactively deny the futures ETF so that they can deny the spot ETF. Um, that's the entire thing the Grayscale decision hangs on, and if that gets reversed, then the Grayscale decision and the whole win that Grayscale was celebrating is out the door. I do fall in the camp though of an ETF having a positive impact on the price. I just don't expect the ETF to come soon.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'll be early 2024. We've talked about this at length. I'm not super excited for it. It's not a product I would use at all, but it will help price discovery for Bitcoin itself because institutions won't be forced to use this Bitcoin futures product that can flood the market with highly volatile synthetic Bitcoin, essentially. But an ETF is an IOU. So at every turn, we always advocate people to hold Bitcoin itself. And I know this is kind of the I don't know, the crypto, the cypherpunk dream here that everyone can hold their own keys, but I think it's possible for most people to learn how to do. It's not a hard thing. If I can figure it out, you can probably figure it out. Especially if you consume, Bitcoin media and are generally interested in it more than just a kind of passive investment vehicle on some sort of phone app. You should take the 1 or 2 hours to withdraw and make sure your assets are off Coinbase, off Swan, or some people like to call it Ripple. Who we covered this already, didn't we? Ripple pulling out of the Fortress deal.
Yeah, I mean, I like this. This was big news when it came out. I know a lot of people were very uncomfortable with this idea. I do know on the other side of the coin, though, that in the same vein that people, I think, had a knee jerk reaction when they first heard it, I think there's a lot of knee jerk reactions right now. Um, this is very clearly something that is developing in real time. We could have a new buyer by end of day today or by next week. So I'm more looking for the dust to settle around this rather than have a tried and true, I think, opinion. There's a little too much. It's a little too murky in the waters right now, and where I stand is things just need to get settled.
Yep, agree. We've got a lot of viewers here on Zap.stream today. Shout out to you guys. Sherry, we got Derek Ross, G Sovereignty, even Pablo saying shut it down. Someone named Mike, Sperry, Little Spoon. What's up, everybody? The Grinder sending us a little zap says ETFs are a license scam. Agree. Scam City. But potentially a scam that might be good for Bitcoin a little bit in terms of price appreciation, broader education, and adoption on an institutional level. Look, we've said it before on the show. These institutions just they can't do it. I mean, they can't do it otherwise. There's too much red tape. There's too much vulnerability there. There's too many risks. You don't actually want a CEO walking around with Bitcoin keys you don't want Sailor walking around with micro strategies,
Really,
tens and hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin.
you don't think that Sailor is capable of holding his passphrase safely?
No, not for his company. For his own Bitcoin, sure, he can do whatever he wants. But for MicroStrategy, dude, that would make him the biggest honeypot in the world. I mean, he needs institutional grade, geographically distributed multi-sig. I mean, he needs to buy a bunch of properties like all over the earth and distribute a multi-sig with them. I think that's the only way. But of course, they don't do that, right? there's too much liability. Like it's too high risk. They have to use kind of bespoke institutional custody solutions. You know, their Bitcoin. Some people argue is not their Bitcoin. I don't know where they're holding. I don't know if it's been proven, but people guess that it's held at Coinbase. Um,
I thought they announced that
Makes
once,
sense.
but I'm
They
not.
could have. I don't remember. Yeah, it's possible. But I don't know. It's just important to realize there's different incentives and different restraints when it comes to institutions. So, and I don't care what they do with their Bitcoin. You know, if they lose it, but no skin off my back. I would recommend all individuals, however, self custody. That's the way it's got to be. If you want to actually own the asset at all. In terms of news, that's about it for now. You know, that little SuZu surprise. Nice way to wrap it up. But we can dig into some questions if you like, Q.
Let's do it.
All right. All right, we got three. So the first I'll ask you for today. How has the ethos of hodling evolved within the Bitcoin community? And what impact does this long-term hodl mentality have on the volatility and the overall market dynamics? So kind of a three-pronged question there.
I mean, there's an aspect of it that I would argue, like you see the statistics of long-term holders, and that percentage grows, not consistently, but over a long enough time period, it has been steadily growing. I would say though, it's changed in that the tools that we have access to today make it a lot easier for someone like me to hold my own keys versus 10 years ago in this space where you had to like hard code a wallet on a laptop using Reddit to reference. Like there was no BTC sessions walking you through with video tutorials. There was none of there was no cold card. There was not even a ledger for that matter. Like there was so from the angle of we've created these products to make this easier, it has actually become a lot easier. And from the aspect of growth, we have steadily seen an increase in long-term holders over the last 10 years.
100%. I think I would describe the process of holding your keys. And using Bitcoin in general, it's like orthogonal to everything else you're going to do in life. I mean, if you're not a software person, if you're not deep into a communications network, it's a learning curve and it's a new experience and it's a hard thing, but it's not an impossible thing. It's something that just has a little bit of a hurdle, you know, couple hours, maybe, a couple weeks in a row. I had a pretty good streak for a couple years where I just spent every Sunday learning about Bitcoin, just a couple hours. I would try out new hardware and software offerings on the market and new ways to store keys and refresh my memory about old ways that I'd used that I hadn't tried in a while. And that's a great way to approach it. And that's kind of all I needed to feel super comfortable using it in basically any context and explaining it to others. So um, I think demonstrating and kind of teaching someone else how to do it is a really good way to test yourself as well. But I guess to get back to the question, it's interesting, man. I mean, I think it smooths out some of that price volatility and it sends us higher. Like you're seeing over time, greater percentage of Bitcoin is not being put back up for sale. And what does that tell you? I mean, no one knows at what level it will be. I mean, I think we're going to see a massive dump around 100K, assuming we can, hit that 4x here. But I don't know. I think long term, you'll see more people using this as a store of savings. A lot of talk about that narrative being broken over the last year, but we should have anticipated this. This is the 4-year cycle. This 75 to 80, percent drawdowns happens about every 4 years. Um, and I think it'll kind of shake out more and more, especially as you have institutions getting in and kind of stronger hands, people following this sailor model who've sold none and are holding thousands. That's really going to make a pretty big dent. Um, yeah, whether this is the strategy, I'm not really all for. I mean, I think certainly you can use Bitcoin by virtue of holding it and hodling it. You don't have to do anything with it to be a Bitcoiner. But I think the culture has gone a little far in this direction because if you're not actually spending Bitcoin, you're not really showing the world how it is effective money. And it just becomes an instrument of saving somewhat. And as we've seen over a 4-year time period, it can be, depending on which side of the 4 years you're on, it can be a pretty good or bad means of savings. So I think people should use their Bitcoin. I think they should allocate a little percentage to spend and replace and use with merchants and trade with each other and try new things with. I think it's super important. I don't I don't know if we want. I don't know if that's the narrative that the one that people seem to be calling for. I don't know if that's the one we actually want, or if it's just a way to keep something alive in the form of hopium. That this Bitcoin is a store of value thing. It's like it's just really early days, man. Store of value, medium of exchange, unit of account. Very cool in theory, like very good, great books. Great job, everybody. Like beautiful description of money. But the reality is these things are going to take decades to play out. I think.
Wait, you mean normies aren't going to go and sit there and learn about the history of money with as much enthusiasm and excitement as Bitcoiners?
Yeah, I hate to break it to you, but the Bitcoin standards is not going to be taught in fucking schools anytime soon. And you can drop off all the books you want at the Senate, but those motherfuckers are illiterate. So it's not helpful. Okay. No one cares about the history of money. Um yeah, they care about they but when you show someone, I've never shown someone the features of magic internet money and not had their mind completely melted in front of me. When you show them the power of the Lightning Network, when you show them Bitcoin, when you hand them that open dime, that Sats card, that cold card, you set it up for them. Um, blows their mind. They become interested. They start asking questions about communications network, private, public, key pairs. Like it's just a beautiful thing. It's so in short, do what you got to do, but I think there's trade-offs to everybody just hodling. In the old times, it wasn't always hodling, it was hoarding. You're meant to It was a very selfish thing to do. You had to continue to pass your Bitcoin around and make this kind of circular economy thing grow. I think you see a lot of that sentiment today. Shout out Joe Hall for his tireless efforts making videos around the world of people using Bitcoin, even on a very, very small scale. Now, statistically, are they moving the needle? Are we competing? Important to point out that Bitcoin surpassed Visa's annual transaction volume of to the tune of like 10 trillion. Yeah, so that's like a 20x of its market cap, the value flying through it, which is insane. And tells you that market cap has a lot of room to grow, I think. If you use an example of like how much volume Swan does versus their valuation for something like that. If you just treated it as a private equity, it'd be interesting. Interesting thought experiment. But interestingly enough, I mean, it's going to catch up with Fedwire and ACH payments per year eventually. It's going to continue to balloon. I mean, people are using this, they see value in it. So if you've never tried it, it's a really good time. Really early days, I think. Still. I don't think we realize how early it is, you know?
No, I'll even explain it in another way. I think too many people think that Bitcoin to the moon is around the corner, and that tells you how far along they think things are, when in fact, like I don't believe we are that close to that outcome.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of hopium, there's a lot of just kind of mimetic, senseless content that comes out that isn't super useful to people. I mean, I think the meme culture is cool and it's great for maybe getting people in initially, getting them excited, keeping them hopeful and optimistic. But there's like real work to be done here. Like we're not going to meme our way to 100K, you know?
We could try though.
We can surely try. It's going to feel like we did. I don't deny that. I mean, the euphoria when you wake up and your net worth is doubled is insane. And you'll go along with, you'll be saying, we'll be saying all kinds of crazy shit, you know, 18, 24 months from now. You know, if my prediction holds true that between 6 to 18 months after the halving, we're going to see our next all-time high. Yeah, it's gonna be euphoric. It's gonna be reckless. There's gonna be people holding when they should have sold. There's gonna be people who missed out now who are then buying and are gonna get wrecked later. And it's a psychological attack on Bitcoin's price itself. And this is just the way the market moves. And it's the closest thing to a free market we have. So it's exciting that these things can occur somewhat naturally.
Yeah, sorry. I'm getting really distracted by all these videos of the flooding right now in New York.
The flooding? What's
Apparently,
happening in New York?
apparently New York is just dealing with like crazy floods.
Of
I'm gonna
immigrants?
no of literal water. Like I was
Really?
watching. There's a video of inside of a bus that the water levels in New York streets are so large that it's like in the bus and people are literally like trying to like have their feet on the seats so that they don't get their shoes soaking wet.
Dude, that's my experience of New York. I mean, I just like moved from out there, and
It just
every
every
time
time
I
you
go
walk there, it floods.
every time I go into the city, like a couple times a year, it'd just be raining so hard that it's miserable, man. I mean, that the infrastructure is so janky. Like the interesting thing about New York is I have a theory that these people have like among the strongest calves in the world, like compared only to people who live in the mountains, because every like 3 inches of sidewalk is a different fucking grade. Like it's just so crumbled and deteriorated and wrecked that walking through it is like, you know, it's like a strongman challenge, and you're getting poured on, and there's rats and people trying to kill you. There's fucking parade of immigrants coming in. Like, it's just
Dude,
what a
you go
crazy
to
town.
I don't know where you go in New York, but I do not have those experiences.
You
And
didn't have this experiences? Were you in Manhattan? Where are you?
I I I tend to be south of Central Park. Like different neighborhoods south of Central Park tends to be where I
I
find
mean,
myself.
Lower East Side's like that. I mean, it gets dicey down there too, man. Um, oh, windy, cold. No, stay away from New York, man. It's over. It's over. Okay. The golden age of the New York and the East Coast are
I mean,
over.
I'm at a point in
But
my
I am
life
I
where
am
I know I'm
curious.
never gonna live there, but looking back, like if you had asked 18-year-old Q, I would have been like, "Oh, I'm gonna live in New York." Like that was like that was what I wanted in life.
Yeah. I thought that for about 2 minutes, and I realized like this city will eat me alive and take my soul, and I'm not
Mm,
about that, and all my money.
I had the contract drawn up with the devil himself.
No, I think if I could get a penthouse on the edge of Central Park, then I would do it. Or an apartment that overlooks Central Park. That'd be a beautiful thing. I mean, that would be
Sure,
great.
sure, and I'll be back in California when I could have beach oceanside property.
Oh yeah, I'll get some there too.
Yeah.
I think Costa Rica oceanside property competes with it, because you're looking at a fifth of the price, and you know you're not going to get stabbed in the head like walking
Are you
down
sure about that
by
in
a
Costa
homeless
Rica?
person. Maybe in current times might be hard to tell, because again, you've got these train of migrants, which I hate to say it. I wish it wasn't true, but they bring with them a crime wave. It's like a mobile crime wave that goes through. I have friends that live there. You know, they get their houses broken into. They get machetes pointed at them from people that are passing through to get to the States. We could talk about this. I mean, what'd you think of Elon going down? I was actually out hiking, and I couldn't figure out why, but I had cell service the entire time, which is weird. So I was actually listening to Elon's thing, yesterday. He popped up at the border and had this like really terrible, super low quality live stream for like there's like a million people joining and he's just umming and erring and just not progressing the content at all. Did you catch this? It was his attempt at citizen journalism. He said, "We're going to go find some solutions. We're going to go find out what's really going on at the border." And
I did.
yeah,
I like Elon Musk. I do. I like
mhm.
him. I respect him. But my issue is like, why? Why do you need to get involved in this right now? Like, you've already kind of destroyed and ruined Twitter to an extent. So tell me,
He's
like,
at
what?
war with the media, man. He's at war with the Bidens. He's at war with or in love with AOC. It's hard to tell.
No, he is in love with her. They have secret, like, closed door meetings, burner
Meetings.
phones, meetings.
Yeah.
Meeting. It's like season
Like
one of House of Cards.
BDSM rituals. Yeah. Close door meetings. Yeah. That's an interesting matchup. I don't know, man. I don't know what to think about it. I don't feel affected by this crisis at all. I think it's something the media turns its attention to and turns the volume up on when it's politically kind of strategic and convenient for them. It's something that happens year round. Why are we just hearing more and more about this today? It's because they want you to focus on this. But they're not going to do anything to stop it. Look, they defunded all those guys. They've got, the border patrol. It's wide open. Come right in. They need these people to prevent population collapse and to fulfill jobs and to take jobs that no one's willing to take. They need them to
And to
keep the
buy the
economy.
lowest level junk.
And buy the lowest level junk and basically eat up all this inflation that we can't even keep up with at home. And we're exporting to other countries and they can't keep up with it either. So, I mean, you see the exact same thing happening in Europe. It's been happening year over year for a long time. You think they couldn't sink these fucking boats? Like the minute they left, like they're not interested. It's like, come right in. I don't know what's right or wrong. I mean, I don't have faith in like the state's ability to solve problems like this. The incentives are too backwards. So I don't have an opinion about, oh, we should make the legal process better. Should we? I mean, who cares? Seems like a great time to move to Mexico, renounce your citizenship, walk back in, and be a sovereign individual.
Like almost like be one of the migrants coming in. That's the life you want to live.
Yeah. No, renounce your citizenship. Maybe a mysterious open dime full of Bitcoin shows up at your apartment in Mexico 2 years later, and then walk back in, and you could run this town, man.
Just as a reminder, I do not give financial advice, but McShane does. So if you make this decision, his name on the lawsuit, not me.
If you fulfill that plan, you owe me like 10% though. It's
Do you understand that
whatever you saved on exit tax, that's my take.
but you're not going to save on exit tax. You're still going to have to pay the exit tax if you're renouncing your citizenship.
What do you mean? This is all your non-KYC Bitcoin that you lost in a boating accident. If someone decides to make a charitable donation to you while you're living in Mexico in some remote village, and all this Bitcoin just shows up at your door one day, I mean, what are you gonna?
Okay. Now, you didn't explain that very well. I'm now following you. We just got word from our producer Tino that he is leaving. He's no longer with us or staying in the United States of America.
Well,
So
Tino's already done this before, so
don't
he's
dox
been
him.
on
Don't
this for
dox
a
him.
while. I'm not gonna. I'm just saying. He already knows. He already knows how this works.
Do we want to hit at least one more question?
Yeah, let's hit two. Do we have two? We have one.
We have two more.
All right, cool.
How has the cypherpunk movement and its principles influenced the development, adoption, and culture surrounding Bitcoin? And how do community members uphold these values today?
Oh,
has an
they
influence. I
don't.
mean, like it doesn't exist without this movement. So that's the influence of it. Is literally
Yeah. Yeah, it's
if you
like
want to.
cool origin story, bro, and people want to pay reverence to it, but we're nowhere near at the level of most Bitcoin is captured in centralized institutions and entities, unfortunately. So, not very cypherpunk.
Okay, let's break that down because I do agree with you from the context of all global Bitcoin holders don't understand the cypherpunk roots. They are not self-custodying. They don't care about their privacy. They do appreciate the state's intervention and involvement in matters that maybe they shouldn't be in. So I agree with you in the broad sense. But when we talk about the community and more specifically, Bitcoin Twitter or Noster, the community and the more active voices, I don't think align with that. And those more active voices align more with the ethos of the cypherpunk movement. Would you agree with that?
I think there's a few holdouts and interesting cypherpunks that are still around that have massive followings. But the loudest voices, if you go look, I mean, we're the hub of all Bitcoin interactions occur. You think the loudest voices on Twitter right now are part of the dev mailing list?
No.
I mean, they have no fucking idea what's going on in Bitcoin development. They're not developers, and they're new Bitcoiners. They got here in 2020. They got into Bitcoin at like 29, 30K, and they're now telling you what you should do with your money. I think that culture, I don't know, it's nice. Nice in retrospect. I think that spirit sticks with some people and they're pay reverence to the history and use it. It's instructive and useful in your own life. As we always point people to take these matters in their own hands, learn to code a little bit, learn to take your Bitcoin off the exchanges and the easy platforms with trade-offs and devise your own multi-sigs or passphrase setups. I think these things are very much in the spirit, and that part of it's really strong, but the rest of it, I don't know. For example, did you know that Adam Back was like not that early to Bitcoin, like
No, but he was like a hardcore
2014?
cypherpunk.
He was, but Satoshi first sent him communications
Bitcoin,
about the project,
and then he
and
ignored
he's
him.
like, yeah, Adam's like, yeah, whatever, bro. This looks like
Well,
it
because
sucks.
he had a failed attempt. I forgot what his cryptocurrency was, but Satoshi actually was
There were a bunch of
referencing.
attempts at eCash, and they were
Yeah,
all kind of circling around each other. Chum and eCash,
yeah,
and that
and
guy lost his goddamn mind. David Chum, holy shit.
yeah.
Yeah,
But the point being that
Hash Cash.
while Adam Back didn't get involved with Bitcoin specifically early on, like his early work in the cypherpunk movement helped Satoshi to build Bitcoin. So Hashcash as
Yeah, and
well.
it's
I
just
think I think BitGold too was another one, or
there's a bunch of
DigiGold.
them. There's a bunch of failed attempts at doing what I mean, like way different kind of takes on what Bitcoin is now, and none of them with all the innovations of course, that Bitcoin has now. But no, I think his contributions are kind of lasting. People like to look to him just as a historical figure who hasn't gone the way of shitcoins entirely and has been a nice I don't know, like a guiding light in the space to a certain extent. On you may be with him on some things, not with him on others, but it's certainly nice to have people like that around. Like, can you imagine if Hal Finney was still around today? I think it would change the ethos of the culture itself a little bit. I mean, these people have a pretty huge impact. It's kind of people that when they talk, you listen. So yeah. What other questions do we have for the day, Q?
All right. This is one I've been itching to ask. So, if you knew the identity of Satoshi Nakamoto, what would you do?
If I knew the identity of Satoshi, would I be with him in person or them or she?
You
I guess it
can
could be
you can do anything. It can be
anything.
you like but they don't know that you know. You both mutually know. You're communicating with them digitally. You're communicating with in person. Like, however you want to build the scenario, but the only ingredient you need in your scenario, think like Iron Chef, is who Satoshi's like the actual identity of Satoshi.
Well, if it turned out to be the CIA or something, I would
That's
make sure that
exactly-
they didn't. I would make sure that they didn't know that I knew.
That was my
Um,
first thought. Was if this is the CIA, this is a bad
yeah,
thing.
if it's the CIA or the NSA, I'll just mind my own fucking business and we'll just pretend I
Would you sell
didn't
your
know that.
Bitcoin? Would you sell your Bitcoin?
No, it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a
Interesting.
difference. You can verify the code yourself. It doesn't make a difference. There's no backdoor. It doesn't matter. It would be divine. That is the Satoshi we deserve. It should be the NSA. It probably is. That's fine with me. If it were a regular person and they were chill and not gonna kill me for finding that out, then yeah, I would just like to kind of talk to them and get their take. I wouldn't want to exploit them in any way or let anyone else know, though. I think it ruins it. I don't think we should know who Satoshi is. I think we should stop asking this question. I think the cult of Satoshi should die. It's not very useful to us going forward. Satoshi's views are not in line with what Bitcoin is today. We don't know what he, she, or they think. And though, I mean, it could be useful going forward to know if they suddenly came back. I think it would also be devastating. I mean, this person would be instantly persecuted, jailed, killed, whatever, asked to change it. They would have an outsized influence on the protocol, your immaculate conception, and the mystique of Bitcoin is gone. Like we were talking about before the show, it's like when Jack Malish started a podcast, it's like your mystique has vanished. Your social equity is dropping off a cliff. Yeah. So no. Satoshi, stay private. Stay private, my man or woman or three-letter agency.
All right. Well, if I knew the identity of Satoshi, I'd probably, extort them a little bit. I played a little bit of mind games to start to like really fuck with them, like leave notes in their home. I know what you did.
What the fuck? Why? You're gonna extort them and leave notes and stalk them and leave notes in their house.
Yeah, so
That's
that they're so
crazy.
scared that they give me their passphrase, and then I have 1,000,000 Bitcoin. It's my only
There's
shot at 1,000,000 Bitcoin, man. Like,
I don't know about that. I mean, I think there's still room for this pod to blow up.
oh,
If
okay,
if I can drink like 2 or 3 more of these next week, like during a show, and we just go off on a rant, go viral,
sure,
we'll get there.
sure.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Sure.
Hey, we've been blowing up on YouTube Shorts, okay? And we're big in Japan. Speaking of, dude, we're huge in Japan.
Yo, send Alex McShane Zaps so that I can join all of you guys in Nostrasia, because
They've been sending you Zaps, man.
they've been sending
Let's
you
see.
Zaps.
We're
I'm just
at
gonna like continuously point out that Tino and I do not receive any of the Zaps you guys are sending to McShane.
I've been
So
back channeling with Tino. Tino's been receiving Zaps.
okay, cool. So I'm
Okay, we
going
split the pot. We split the pot. Now that you've completed your first week of work, we'll consider paying you next week. Yeah, I don't know. I could go off on a tangent right now. So the story of like what would you do if you met Satoshi always reminds me of the story of Yukio Mishima.
Mhm.
and after he was the last man to commit harakiri. He was very talented, like very a lot of achievements in his life, but ultimately he performed a coup on his 40th birthday, same day that he finished his beautiful tetralogy called the Sea of Fertility. Performed a coup, tried to take over the Japanese military, tied up the generals, went out onto the balcony and assembled like all those soldiers on the lawn. And he was such a popular, famous figure that the government had allowed him to form his own militia. So he was able to enter these offices, talk to these people, and then ultimately hold them captive with, yeah, with a couple of his highest ranking officers. So he goes out onto the balcony to talk to all these military men that were assembled below and give his big speech. They're going to change Japan. They're going to bring back the way of the samurai. They're going to bring back his imperial majesty and reverence to that. And these helicopters come overhead. This is like in the 60s to film what's going on, like news helicopters. And he's only got he's using his voice. So the people on the ground can't hear what he's saying because of the helicopters that are filming it. And they're just laughing at him. And so the biggest, kind of moment of his life, he's made a fool of, and he goes back into the office and he commits harikiri, and his best friend and right hand man then has to behead him, goes to behead him, and it doesn't work. He's got the ritual Japanese samurai sword. It doesn't completely clean his head off, which in Bushido code, you're a failure and disgrace your whole family. You fucked up. And it's Yukio Mishima. You fucked up Yukio Mishima's suicide. So this man now goes on his knees, and stabs himself in the chest, and a third guy comes and cuts both of their heads off. Okay,
Does the third guy
just hear
manage
me
to get the
out.
job done?
The third guy did it, bro. The third guy did it, and was, I don't know if he was there's some like tied up generals there that are just horrified. They were never hurt. They just watched this whole thing. These two, crazy author and his weird militia, just commit harikiri. So this third guy goes on to like live his life. He kind of disappears into Japan. And there's a journalist that tracked him down and ultimately interviewed him because he didn't go to prison for this. He didn't. He just lives his life in Japan. He lives in an apartment in Japan nowadays. Anyways, that is a really long-winded story, but that third man always reminds me of Satoshi. I'm like, that might be Satoshi, even though it's probable that Satoshi's a Westerner living in the United States. Just like he's just filled with so many secrets and weird, you know what I mean, and just living his own humble life. And probably people are interacting with him and figuring out who they are, or also probably they're dead because they would be, they're one of the richest people alive if they weren't. And it's pretty remarkable that none of that Bitcoin's moved. So I don't know. Weird
They're
rant to end
definitely
the
dead.
day. You think they're
Satoshi's
definitely dead?
I think Satoshi's dead.
What if it's a group of people, though? I mean, that's a pretty remarkable achievement for one person. But history is filled with remarkable people, so
Well, like
I don't know.
I think that I don't believe that the account associated with Satoshi Nakamoto was run by multiple people, but I don't think it's fair to say that Satoshi Nakamoto created Bitcoin because it genuinely, as we kind of discussed, if all of these other attempts at digital cash didn't exist, Satoshi had no foundation to go off of. So that's my final just sort of thought on this, that while yes, Satoshi did create Bitcoin, he did it on the back of a lot of other people's work, and that work was
Yeah,
just
of
as
course.
necessary.
Yeah, I think, all humanity altering inventions are cumulative of small innovations that happened before. I mean, you can't create something from nothing. So I don't know. My hope is generally that we never find out who did it. He, she, they don't care. Don't want to know. I think it ruins the story, ruins the trustless nature of it, the Immaculate Conception. So if you know, keep quiet. Don't say anything. You're also like under severe political interest and trouble, you know, if you did this. You're talking about a technology that has severe consequences for the state and offers freedom to people that the state never intended on levels they never wanted us to have. So be in a lot of trouble making something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still in the camp of this is not going to be a very clean break. This is going to get ugly, most likely violent. People who control power don't like just giving it up. But that's a great way to end on a Friday stream after a lovely week with all of you
Jeez.
wonderful folks.
Yeah, wrap it
Too
up. I
heavy?
mean, nah, it's all good, man. It's Friday. Look, we're now below. Looks like we broke through 27K and dropping. Governments may shut down, markets may crash. Maybe Bitcoin. Maybe you'll have an opportunity to buy some cheap sats this weekend. But regardless, you know, we're hodling and buying, and we'll be back. We'll be back Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Thanks for joining everyone on Zap That Stream. We had a relatively large stream today. If you're on Rumble or YouTube, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you have any feedback. Appreciate you all joining us today.
Yeah, be sure to send us your questions. Let us know what Bitcoin Q&As you want answered. Have a great weekend.